All right, this is Dr. R. We're going to go over some epi questions, and we're going to start here with this one. I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about the different ways to do a multiple choice question and then go into the question itself. So for some people, what they often want to do is they might want to start here with the question lead in. Lead in, that's here. That's everything that includes the question mark. Or they might want to actually come down here and look at the question answer options. Some people start here with the question lead in and then try to answer the question itself. I find that quite hard. I actually have dyslexia, and so I often get really tripped up if I try to read too much. So for my limited skills, I actually start here by just looking at the question options itself. And what this is telling me is that it's telling me that there's different kinds of research options. So there's basic science research, there's clinical science research, there's epidemiological research, services-oriented research, or systems-focused research. So these are different kinds of research that can be done. And I now know that when I go back here to the question stem, I can now start to read this and start to think, well, what I'm trying to decipher is what's going to be important and not important for these different kinds of research modalities. So now let's just go after the question itself. So a 45-year-old man has been experiencing severe chest pain for the past few weeks. He finally decides to see his doctor, who orders a battery of tests and refers him to a cardiologist. The cardiologist prescribes medication and recommends surgery if the medication does not improve his condition. So what I'm trying to look at is if I was this patient, 45-year-old man, and I actually came to see my doctor and then I went to a cardiologist, I would be recommended for surgery. And if a researcher wanted to do research on this, it would say which type of health research would be most appropriate to investigate the effectiveness of the medication prescribed for the patient. Well, am I looking at trying to do basic science research? Like, do I want to understand the fundamental mechanisms of that research? Do I want to look at the biological or the physiological pathways about John's chest pain? Or maybe I actually want to look at the treatments or the interventions or the medications that are being used around John's chest pain. And for me, I think this seems to match quite well with clinical research because we are prescribing medication, they're ordering batteries of tests, and they're recommending surgery. So we're talking about a patient and their treatments, their interventions, and even their medications potentially. So what I might want to do is I might want to do a randomized controlled trial, or I might want to do a cohort study, or I might want to do a case control study. We'll get more into this later on in the semester, but these are different kinds of clinical research studies that can be done. But, well, maybe it's epidemiological research. So for right now, I'm going to give this one kind of top priority. But is this epidemiological research? And epidemiological research would be looking at studying the distribution of disease in a population. And I'm not really looking at that. This here is not really talking about a group of people who had chest pain. It's not really talking about a population that was prescribed a medication or recommended for surgery. It's talking about a singular patient that has been prescribed medication and then sent for surgery. So I'm not going to give this one as much weight as I would for clinical research so far. Let's talk about services. So the services research really looks at how do we deliver healthcare, and I think I know how to spell, and how is healthcare organized? So can we then improve, let's say the doctor sent them to a cardiologist, but maybe it took 10 weeks for John to get to a cardiologist because the healthcare system, the delivery of which, the referral system or the organization, the referral took too long to get there. So maybe we can do services research to improve the referral of John to the cardiologist. But that's not what this one is actually talking about. So I'm not going to give that one a really high rating as well. And then systems research, that looks at the different or complex systems that surround healthcare. So things like one of the studies that I was highly involved in was catheter-related bloodstream infections, and why catheter-related bloodstream infections were affecting so many people. We had over 200,000 people getting catheter-related bloodstream infections in the ICU. And so we wanted to look at what was the system that was causing this. And so we did systems research when we looked at all the different components that it would take to prevent a catheter-related bloodstream infection. And so, for instance, we would make sure that you wash your hands before you actually put in a central line. You would actually use a full drape on your patient. You would make sure to use chlorhexidine and other things. And so this creates the complex system that makes up what we do to put in a central line. And if you don't do it correctly, you can end up with a bloodstream infection. So this complex system, we found that it was better to do X, Y, and Z, and then therefore we were able to decrease the rate of catheter-related bloodstream infections by doing X, Y, and Z. So this is not talking about systems research either. So I'm still going to go back to B being the correct answer, which is clinical research. Thank you.